Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Fresher Sounds podcast with me, your host, Ross. So, as you can see, we have our guest today. So, guest speaker, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jem. I am a trainee therapist, training person-centered counselling, and in between that, I do employee wellbeing events and resources and stuff, mostly for tech companies, because before this career changed, I worked in tech for 10 years.
Very interesting. So, obviously, you mentioned about the therapist side of things. What got you into, wanting to be a therapist?
So I started doing talks about my own mental health and things like wellbeing in tech back in 2018. And from then, people started coming to me and saying, can you do talks at my company? Can you do stuff like that? And then especially when lockdown happened in 2020, a lot of people were coming to me and asking me to do things because that was a time where mental health was definitely impacted for a lot of people. And I was like, right, if I am going to do this, and if I'm going to start asking for money to do this, I need to have some qualifications. If I'm going to do this ethically, I need to have a qualification or two. I cannot be doing this just off my own back, not when people are coming to me with real problems. So I started looking for courses I could do. I found one that was taught in Manchester. I went along, and the first one, it was, you start at level 2 for some reason. I don't know why. There isn't a level 1. I don't know. And it's just teaching you how to have empathetic conversations. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And we were doing like 15-minute role play conversations. And it was during those sessions that I realized that actually this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if I could do this. I got real fulfillment out of it. And so I just kind of continued along that course. So I'm doing level 4 now, and it's my last one. After this course, I will be able to work as a counsellor in an agency. Then I could do another course before I set up my own practice, which is the overall goal, but that's a few years away yet. But yeah, it just really came out of this wanting to help people, but wanting to do it ethically.
So, what was the reason behind you wanting to help others? Was it maybe you've gone through situations in your own personal life?
Yeah, so I have anxiety and complex PTSD, and so it was the anxiety that I started to talk about, just started to share my own stories in tech. I did a couple of conference talks there because I wanted to talk about my experiences as someone in the industry, because at the time, I said this was back in 2018, we were only just really starting to talk about things like burnout properly and well-being in a industry that can ask a lot of people, and you are in front of a screen for 8 hours a day, especially if you work from home, which some people are fine with, some people are not fine with. There is a lot of overtime in certain parts. It seems as a very not so much anymore, but definitely back then it was seen as like a play hard, work hard kind of vibe, which is not a recipe for people to have good mental health.
Yeah.
And so I was really talking about that and talking about how I was working on my own mental health, because it was getting to the point where I had to do something. I said I have complex PTSD. My childhood was not a happy one. And so dealing with that and coming to terms and trying to heal from that, and then dealing with the anxiety on top of that, meant that I was really doing this stuff. And I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to share what I was learning, share what I was doing, and it really resonated with people. And that's kind of when I was like, I actually remember the thing that actually really triggered this career change properly. I got off stage after my first talk, and a friend of mine came up to me and said, so I don't have any mental health conditions, but I don't know how to look after my mental health the way I know how to look after my body, right? I know that I need to go to the gym, even though I don't have any physical health conditions, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how to do that for my mental health. And that's kind of when I realized that we're not really taught about this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I had struggled to figure out what self-care meant and how to look after myself. But I also was like, well, yeah, but I also had kind of a terrible childhood, and obviously I didn't have the resources for this. But then I kind of realized, actually, no, most people aren't taught this. We're not taught this is how we should be looking after ourselves. This is how we should be talking to ourselves. And so it's in the process of teaching myself, I realized I could also teach and help others with this stuff. Like, I can't solve the problem for you, but I can give you the tools that I've made and found that work for me, and you can see if they can work for you. And then this kind of grew into this, actually, I'm going to be a counsellor and actually sit with people the way that my counsellor has sat with me through all the stuff I've had to work through, because I've been in therapy for 8-9 years now, just working on my own stuff.
It's a long time, that. So, obviously, in regards to the, like training side of things, how long has it took you to get up to where you're up to now? And you're not even finished yet, are you?
So it's so the courses are part-time. So they started off as evening courses. So it was 6 till 9 p.m. And it followed like the school year essentially, so September to July.
Yeah.
So the first course was 1 year, the second course was 1 year. This course I'm doing now is 2 years, and it's a full day.
Wow.
So it's 10 till 5 every Tuesday that I'm in class, plus all the homework outside of that. So it's 4 years in total to get to a point where you're qualified. Those are part-time years, but obviously you've then got to do the homework. I've got to do a placement over the next couple of years where I'll be working for free, essentially, as a trainee counsellor in places like charities you can go to get counselling. A lot of the time they'll have some qualified, but they'll also have some trainees on, because the trainees give their time for free, because you need to have so many hours in placement to qualify. So it's that kind of process. So you've got to do that on top of having a full day in course and all the homework as well. So it's intense.
Quite mad. So are you sat at like a screen doing all this as well, or are you is it text? Like,
so the training is very interactive.
Okay.
So we do some stuff online, so we're online at the moment. But we're only online for like a month or so, because we have to have a certain number of courses every year online for the just for the exam board to set that out. But most of the time we're in class, we're sitting around, we're discussing theory, we're doing role play sessions. It's a very experience based course. We're doing more book learning now than we were previously, but the focus is still very much on, right, you know the theory, but you have to put it in practice, and we have to see you putting it in practice. And so the type of counselling I'm doing is person-centred. It's a very relational therapy, so the important thing is the relationship between...
Sorry about this, guys.
We're here. Promise. We exist.
We apologise about the light going out on us. We have been paying the electric bill, don't worry.
Anyone got a quid to put in?
I've not got no change.
So the type of therapy I do is very much based on the relationship between the therapist and the client. The tenets of person-centered counselling is the 3 things that someone needs in order to develop. Is for someone to show them empathy, unconditional positive regard, and congruence. So the idea is, as a counsellor sitting in front of you, I'm always going to be myself, and I'm always going to be true and real and authentic. I'm always going to believe that you are doing the best you can in the circumstances that you're in, and I'm always going to lead with empathy.
Yeah.
But that means I have to be very self-aware, right? I have to be aware of my own biases, my own blocks to empathy, my own reactions. So much of the past few years have been getting to know myself. Yeah. Figuring out my biases, figuring out in what circumstance I find it difficult to be empathetic to another person. Because if I can't be empathetic, I literally cannot be the type of counsellor that I want to be. And so much of it is about self-awareness and growth and being able to show empathy to people, even if they're making decisions that you don't understand, And so it's very much not a book learning course, very much a you as a person course.
So what would you do if you didn't agree on what someone's either like saying or doing, like you just said then? So have you been taught how to sort of like go around it and object to it, or would you just have to just sit there and just listen to it? So
let me set out the boundaries of how we work first. And
okay. Yeah.
Because I've got examples. So there are obviously ethical and legal boundaries that I have to adhere to. So if someone is engaging in something that's going to harm themselves or someone else, I have to try and get them what they need in order to keep them safe or keep them around them safe. If someone comes and tells me that they're going to break the law, if on the way home they're going to go rob a shop or rob a bank or whatever, I do have a bit of a legal kind of duty to get them the support to stop doing that kind of thing. But within that, the way we go from is whatever this person is doing is serving something at the time. So I am sober. I stopped drinking a couple of years ago. And the reason I stopped is because it was not healthy for me. I was not drinking in a way that was healthy. And I talked about this, and I had talked about this on and off for years with my counsellor about my relationship with alcohol. And every time, he just invited me to explore what was going on with me. It was like, okay, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
What's going on? How do you feel when you do this? What's going on? Just really helped me just explore around the edges of what I'm doing, because it was serving something, right? It was calming my anxiety down. It was quietening that voice in my head. And I was using it as an escape, because I had no other way at the time to escape that voice, right? And so that's what we come from. We come from whatever this person is doing, it is serving something. They are using it to escape. They're using it because that's what they've seen their parents do. That's what they've always done. There is a reason there. That reason is perfectly valid.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is help this person get to that reason and see if within themselves they can find a better way for them to cope with whatever it is they're coping. So that's where we go from.
It's quite interesting that, with you mentioning about, your alcohol and everything, because like people take things to numb the pain and, it's an escape from reality. And the first episode that is out, I spoke about my mental health and the stuff that I've been through. So basically I suffer with depression and anxiety myself, intrusive thoughts. I've tried to kill myself. Like growing up, my childhood's not been the best. My real dad tried to kill me and my mum when I was a baby. We fled from Scotland, moved to Manchester, and my mum met my dad, who she's with now, and he can get like a bit physical, hands-on, and we've not really seen eye to eye. He's like, slapped me around a bit. He's done it in front of my son. And growing up, I was a bit of a shit, really. Like as a teenager, and I was doing cocaine. I was going out every weekend, and I thought I felt at the time, yeah, this is good, because it was temporary. But I was always looking for the next things that could, instead of being it temporary, I want it to be more full time and everything. And, it's quite hard to, try and come away from the temporary and the full time and what you said, find yourself, because it's took me years to try and find myself as well. I'm still finding myself to this day. Fucking hell, I'm 30 years old. And it's hard, but, kudos to you for doing what you've done and everything, because it is hard at the end of the day. You've gone through your own struggles, or you might be still going through your own struggles, and, you thought, well, I want to help out other people as well in the same situation as me, or who are in the same situation, or who has been in the same situation as me, and you want to give them that knowledge. And you sort of you're a comfort person, the way I'm gonna explain it, because I could have my own problems and come to you and go, oh well, this is going on in my life, and then you could then turn around to me. I wouldn't know what you'd say, but you'd probably turn around and go, oh, have you tried this? And yeah, I understand that, and the reason why you've done that is because of this. And it's trying to, like what you said, understanding yourself, and I think it's really, really amazing with what you're doing.
Thank you.
So, is there anything you could give advice to for anyone who may be wanting to get into counselling themselves? It is counselling that you're getting into, yeah.
It is counselling. So I think the journey is going to be intense, as I think I've laid out, both in terms of time, but also in terms of emotional effort you're going to have to put in. I wasn't expecting to learn so much about myself in this process. And I think going in with that kind of mindset of it's just as much is about you as it is the person that you want to be counselling. And so Carl Rogers, I say it clearly, is the name of the person who came up really with person-centered counselling. And he talks about how nobody's ever finished. We are always in the process of becoming ourselves. And that's really the mindset you have to go in with this. Same with anything, right? Even when I'm qualified, I'm still going to be learning, I'm still going to be developing. We need another quid.
I'll put a pound at me in 1 minute. Yeah, £2. Stay on. We need someone to stand over there. Proceed. Sorry about that.
There's always going to be things for me to learn and things for me to develop on and ways for me to get to know myself. And so I think going in, if I could tell myself from like 3 years ago anything, it would be, you're going to learn so much about yourself. It's going to be a difficult journey, but it is going to be joyful. You will learn the joy in getting to know yourself. So advice is very difficult. I have loved this journey, obviously, because I'm now changing my entire career at the age of 37. And also, you could just stop after the first course if you didn't want to. I know people who stopped. They were like, actually, this is not for me. I'm out. Yeah. You know, so it's not like a university degree where it's like 4 years of your life and that's kind of it. So I found that quite useful as well. I could just dip my toe in and that before I...
before you took the full leap.
So, go for it. Check it out. There's so many different resources online for all the different modalities of therapy you can get into, but I think from talking to other people, the one thing that everyone says is it is intense when it comes to learning to be with yourself.
That's interesting. Thanks for that. So I want to ask you another thing as well. What advice would you give to anyone who's tuning in right now, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube, and they're going through anxiety? What advice would you give them?
So this is where I step out of counsellor mode, because we do not give advice in person-centered counselling.
Yeah.
But I do have some stuff that have helped me that I can share. I think the first one is that you're never like alone in what you're experiencing. And that's not to say that why are you feeling bad, there are other people going through worse. It's that I think sometimes we get lost, especially for me when I'm anxious. I get so like caught in my own head about how I am terrible or this terrible thing is going to happen to me. And it's like remembering that there is a shared community and a shared humanity can be quite useful for me. So you aren't alone. There are absolutely people out there who are experiencing similar, who have been where you are and have gotten through it. I think the thing that helped me, the biggest thing that helped me was being in therapy myself. But aside from that, because that's a whole other situation, accessing therapy, being in therapy is very difficult. Put that to one side. Is learning to sit with myself and soothe myself in a way that wasn't wine or other alcohol substances, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just that thing of like, what does rest look like for you?
To me?
You can answer if you want. I can ask the listeners, but if you want to answer, I'm happy to hear that as well. But you know, think like, what does rest look like to you?
Playing on my Xbox.
Perfect, right? Because that's what you're doing, right? I'm a Stardew Valley player. That's what I do. Yeah. That's what rest looks like for me. So make sure that you're actually doing that, because I get into this habit of I feel anxiety and I will sit and feel anxiety, but I won't do anything about it, you know? And it's like, sometimes you have to sit with yourself and listen to yourself be anxious and then get through it. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes it's a case of, right, I've sat with my anxiety for a bit. I've heard my anxiety out. I know what my anxiety is anxious about. There's nothing I can do about that. So what I'm going to go do now is do something nice. I'm going to go be nice to myself.
Treat yourself.
Exactly, because I've just spent all this time probably being really mean to myself. My anxiety can be really mean to me. right? Just
Yeah.
bringing up the worst things I've ever done, the worst things I've ever said, the worst things that it thinks I'm going to do in the future, because anxiety loves to predict the future in terrible ways. So after I've heard it out, I'm going to be nice to myself, just to counteract that meanness a little bit.
That's quite interesting to hear that as well, because obviously, you know, dealing with anxiety myself, and you know, you go through it, and it's nice to listen to someone else who's going through it or who has gone through it. Well, anxiety doesn't. It's not one of these things. It goes, oh, I'm here. Oh, I've gone.
Yeah.
It stays with you. Do you know what I mean? And whatever, you know, traumatic thing you've dealt with in life, it's just there. But yeah, it's awful, and I really wouldn't like pray it on my worst enemy, because, like you said, some of the things that when it's nasty to you, and you feel at your lowest all the time, you feel like you're not good enough, you feel worthless, you feel shit, you know. And I always say I said to someone the other day, I could be sat in a room full of 1,000 people, but I still feel alone. And I hate it. Like, I'm sat at family dues and everyone's like having a good time, smiling, laughing, drinking. I don't drink. I drink now and again, but drinking's really not for me. And I see them all having a good time, and I feel obliged to have a drink just to fit in. And it's just like, no, I'm happy just sitting there, just chilling with my little pint of Pepsi, do you know what I mean? Or a pint of Coke. And I still feel alone, even though I'm sat with my mum, my dad, my sister's boyfriend, my granddad, you know, cousins, aunties, uncles. And I just want to know, like, I'm not asking you personally, but I just want to know why you feel that way and what you can do. Again, I'm not asking you personally, but it's entirely up to you if you want to answer the question. But obviously, you know, and I know that feeling, and it's just an answer I've never been able to resolve or anything, or get an answer to.
It's a really difficult one. I definitely feel, I definitely am. I've definitely had those feelings before of just being surrounded by people, and not feeling alone. I can give some kind of ideas that I have kind of had throughout my time, things that have helped me. Obviously, everyone is different. If it doesn't work for you, that is not your fault. It is the advice's fault, because the advice can't be for everyone. I think, especially when you've had a bit of a shit childhood, as you've shared, I similarly had a bit of a shit childhood. I found, so I am also estranged from my family, my biological family. And part of the reason was, well, there were lots of reasons, but I think one of the reasons that I personally made that decision was because it felt wrong to sit there with people having fun when I remembered all the shit they'd done. There was that disconnect, right? My brain was trying to keep me safe, so my anxiety was up here, and everyone else was having fun. And I'm like, are we not in the same room?
Yeah.
Do you not have the same memories that I do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that was really hard for me to resolve. Other people can resolve it. I'm not saying you should be estranged from your family. Do you know what I mean? I'm not preaching that.
No, yeah, 100%.
I couldn't do that. So I ended up being estranged for many reasons, not just that one. But that was one of them. I think another thing that I've done is, again, it's that getting to know yourself really well and getting to understand. It's a double-ended sword, because
we should have just put the lights on.
yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes it can be you get more lonely as you get to know yourself more, because you realize that you are living in a way that other people are not. So you come across as very authentic. You know who you are at a base level, right? And other people aren't going to be operating at that level. And sometimes you can feel that disconnect. You can see that disconnect. And that can make it feel lonely, right? Because you're over here living how you're living, and they're over there not living how they are. Yeah. And so sometimes you might be picking up on something like that. without fully realizing that's what you're picking up on. And sometimes it's just our anxiety wanting to sabotage you even more, because what you need is connection, right? That's what you're crying out for. And your anxiety is going, maybe not. And that's the self-sabotage of anxiety, in that you know what you would like, you know what would make you feel better, and your anxiety is going, absolutely the fuck not. You know?
Yeah.
And it's trying to protect you, but it's actually making things worse by trying to protect you. Because that's what anxiety does. It's the baseline of anxiety, for the most part, is trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just there raising false flags. It's in trying to keep you safe, it's actually isolating you, which makes it worse. Is what I found in my experience.
Yeah. No, I resonate with you, what you just said there then as well, because like, you know, when you're saying about, you said something along the lines of, oh, do you not remember what they did and everything? You're like, no, absolutely not, the fuck. But yeah, obviously, like growing up, my childhood wasn't the best, as was yours. And, you know, it does made in when I get invited out and everyone's like, oh, happy family, let's, yay. And then a couple of days later, it's not all happy family. And it's like, well, I feel like my family, like, I feel bad saying this, but I feel like my family's got like bipolar, because like the one minute they're up with me and then the next minute they're down with me. And it's just like, just be yourself. Like, I don't understand why you know, I personally feel like a black sheep of the family, and I've had this discussion with my mum. And when I tried to top myself, my mum was like really upset, and she was like, why have you done this? And what's going through your mind? And X, Y, Z. So I just spilled the beans with my mum and just said like, look, this is how I'm feeling, but it's hard to explain how you feel and what's going on inside your mind when sometimes you don't know yourself. And it's just like, it's like you've got mixed emotions. It's like a ball, and it's just like loads of different things just like wrapped up, and just like this negative energy just sat inside your head, and you're like, you just don't know what to do. You're just overwhelmed, overworked and everything, and you're just like, fuck this shit. And you just want to just get a knife and slit your wrist or slit your throat, slit your wherever. I'm not advising anyone to do that, but that's what I've tried to do in the past, and obviously a trained bridge as well. But it's just annoying, and it's just like what you said then as well, with how they treated you, and you're like, you've got like barriers up, and your head's like, well, do you not remember this? Do you not remember this? And it's just like your head's saying like, do you not remember this? But you're trying to be there in the moment, sort of thing. And it's just like you're fighting with your head, basically, and it's so hard. And another thing that I wanted to say as well is, I don't know if you find this, but in the morning when I wake up and I'm having a shower, or if you're having a bath or whatever, my thoughts come into my head all the time, and that's the worst place. As soon as I'm in that shower and I've got that 5 minutes to myself, just getting ready, that's where everything kicks in. And that 5 minutes is the worst 5 minutes of my life in the morning. I hate, like, it's going to sound weird, I hate having a shower in the morning, because I know for a fact that's what I've got to deal with every single day. And it's so frustrating, and it pisses me right off.
Yeah, the shower struggle is real. A lot of people have issues showering when they have mental health issues, and I think it is because you have nothing else to do. You are just being in the shower, which means your brain has full reign.
Yeah.
All of your thoughts, and it's going to fall back to the patterns that it's used to, which in our cases is anxiety and trauma.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I still struggle with it. Not as bad as it was. It's got better as I've learned to be a bit nicer to myself and show myself a bit more compassion. Like, I can turn down the recrimination, the anxiety and the hatred. But there are absolutely days where I'm like, I would do anything to not have to shower right now, you know?
Yeah. There's been times where I've just tramped it. I'm gonna sit here and blame it. I've not had a shower for like 2-3 days because my anxiety and depression has just got the best of me. and
done
I've not
sink
washed.
washes.
Pardon?
I've done sink washes before.
I don't even do that. I've just tramped it out,
Yeah.
put clean boxers and socks on, but I've just not had a shower or anything, and I'm just like, I just can't be arsed.
Yeah.
And then I know people who are going to be sat there watching or listening and going to be thinking like, well, it's not hard to have a shower or a bath or a wash or anything, and the simplest things can be the hardest things just to do, and it's just like people if people don't have these problems and they don't understand it themselves, it's like, well, yeah, you can sit there and call me a scruffy bastard or whatever, and you're unhygienic, but if you're in that moment, in that frame, that minor frame as well, then it's just like, well, be in my shoes. Mm-hmm. You live my day-to-day life, and you'll understand then. Do you know what I mean? But it's when your mind's, obviously, when you said that, them first 5 minutes, when your mind has full reign, I have to keep my mind occupied 24/7. I always have to be constantly doing something, always on it. I'm always doing different things, and it's like with the podcast, I'm either setting something up for the podcast, or I'm helping somebody else's podcast out, or I'm designing stuff for their podcast, and it's just like I'm always doing a million things at once, and I can't rest. And it's like when I go to sleep as well, I find it hard to go to sleep. I don't know if you have this issue, and I'll sit there on my Xbox till about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. My eyes are stinging, red raw, and my eyes are like that going on me, and then you can just feel yourself just slumping in your chair, and you're just like, go in, and I'm like, nah, I need to get in bed now. And then I lie in bed, and then I'm on my phone for another half an hour, and then I fall asleep with the phone in hand, like.
Yeah, that's a problem. I do actually, I think this is partly also growing up as the eldest of 4, I cannot fall asleep in silence. And I think that's partly because it helps the brain if I've got something to listen to, but also I do things because I grew up in a loud house, so I'm used to having loudness around me.
Apologies again, people. I'm just gonna keep all this light shit in, just for the bants.
Yeah, just for the balls.
Just for shits and gigs.
It's a nice little break in it between all the serious stuff.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, no, I have to listen to something when I fall asleep. Otherwise, yeah, the keeping your brain occupied constantly is definitely a thing. Again, it's something that I found have got a lot easier as I've spent time with myself and learning to be with myself a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. It is very difficult because, again, it's like I said, like imagine having a shower with people screaming at you about the worst things in your life, and then seeing how easy it is to shower, because it's not easy.
It's like being stood in the shower and there's the voices in your head. You're not good enough. You're shit. You're worthless. And it's just repeat and recycle for 5 minutes. That's what, like, that 5 minutes for me is a quick shower. But, there's times where I can just be in the shower for like 15, 20 minutes because I'm just sat there, just monged out, and I'm just listening to what my brain's saying, and it's just fuck off. And then you're trying to move and you physically can't move or anything because it's so hard to explain. It just does me head in because up here what it's like and how it makes you feel, but from there to there and like explaining it in person, it's so hard. But obviously you understand how I feel and I understand how you feel, and it's just it's been nice to have this sort of like chat as well. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.
So yeah, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience or the viewers? Anything, tips, advice before we say goodbye?
I think I've shared most of the stuff that I'd like to share. Mm-hmm. I think I'd like to reiterate that getting to know yourself in a kind way and showing yourself compassion can be joyful. It's a really hard work. It's taken me a long time. Yeah. But it is a journey that can be worth it if you want to go on it.
I've also got another question that just came in my head then. Well, it came in my head before and I just got sidetracked a little bit. So I go to a men's mental health group. Mm-hmm. Is there any women's mental health group around the Manchester area that you know of or that you have been to?
So there's one that I know of. There's one that I know of, and I cannot remember. It's at 53-2, which is under Deansgate Locks.
Right.
And they have a women's peer wellbeing support group.
Okay.
That's the only one that I know of off the top of my head. All the other ones tend to be. So I'm bisexual as well. So I do a lot of stuff in the queer community. So I know a few like queer friendly things that go on, like the Proud Trust and LGBT Foundation has some as well.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that I'm more familiar with.
Right. Okay. So well, what I'll do, everyone, is I will put it into the description, and I'll put the links in there as well. So. Yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you for taking time out your day and being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next one.